The night sky bled red, and the moon hung low like an omen. Every creature in the forest seemed to hold its breath as if the world itself knew something terrible was about to happen. I shouldn't have been there. Not near the border, not under that cursed moon, but fate doesn't care about what we shouldn't do. It only waits for us to make a mistake. And that night I made mine. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. Heavy, steady, dangerous. The scent hit me next. Smoke, iron, and rain. It was the scent that haunted my nightmares. The one I could never forget no matter how many times I tried. My chest tightened. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Kieran? I whispered, the name falling from my lips like poison. The alpha of the rival pack stepped from the shadows, his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight. He looked like a nightmare sculpted into flesh, tall, broad-shouldered, with a coldness that could kill and a voice that could ruin. He had destroyed my home, my people, my peace. And yet, every time I saw him, my heart betrayed me, beating faster as if it didn't remember what he'd done. "What are you doing here, little Omega?" His voice was calm, but I could feel the danger coiled beneath it. "I'm not here for you," I managed to say, though my voice trembled. "Leave before my pack finds you." He smiled, that cruel, knowing smile that made my stomach twist. "You still lie so beautifully." My hands clenched. "Stay away from me." But he didn't. He walked closer, slow and deliberate, the way a predator moves when it knows its prey has nowhere left to run. The air between us grew heavy with tension, thick, suffocating, electric. My breath caught when he stopped just inches from me, his scent wrapping around me like a chain. "You hate me," he murmured, lowering his head until our foreheads nearly touched. "But you came here anyway." "I came to warn you," I said, though my voice cracked. "Warn me," he echoed, his fingers brushing my throat. His touch burned through my skin. Every instinct told me to push him away, to fight, to run. But my body froze, betraying me completely. My heart pounded so loud I thought he could hear it. He tilted his head, studying me. That cold, unreadable expression faltering for just a moment, revealing something softer, something dangerous. "I should kill you," he whispered. "Then do it," I said. "You've already taken everything else." He stared at me for a long time, and for one heartbeat, I thought he might actually let me go. But then his hand tightened on my jaw, his eyes darkened, and I knew the moment had come. The bond ignited before I could scream. His scent filled my lungs, his breath brushed my neck, and then the sharp, burning pain as his fangs sank into my skin. My body arched, a cry breaking from my throat as the heat spread through me like fire. The world spun. The moon, the forest, everything, fading into a blur of crimson light and trembling breath. When it was over, I could still feel his heartbeat against mine. He pulled back slowly, his lips stained with blood, eyes glowing with a strange, possessive hunger. "You belong to me now," he said quietly, as if sealing a vow. I fell to my knees, clutching the mark that throbbed beneath my skin. The mark I never asked for, the bond one never wanted. The alpha I hated most had claimed me under the blood moon, and no matter how much I tried to deny it, my soul already knew the truth. A part of me would never be free of him. Days bled into nights, and nights into something colder. I told myself the mark on my neck was only skin, that if I ignored it long enough, it would fade, that the bond would loosen and the echo of his heartbeat would finally stop chasing mine. But I was wrong. Every sunrise brought the same ache beneath my ribs, the same ghost of his scent in the wind. I would wake from uneasy dreams and find my body trembling, as if it still remembered his warmth even though he was nowhere near. The healers said I was sick. The elders said I was cursed. I almost believed them. I tried herbs, salt baths, even prayers whispered into moonlight, but nothing could wash him away. His presence clung to me like smoke after fire. Faint, invisible, but inescapable. Sometimes I swore I could hear his voice carried through the trees, soft and low, calling my name the way he did that night. The others began to notice. They said I moved like someone haunted. My pack brothers kept their distance, uneasy with the strange energy that pulsed around me whenever the moon rose. I didn't blame them. Even I could feel it. A heat that built in my chest until my pulse raced for no reason at all. That was the bond. The cruel reminder that no matter how far I ran, part of me was still tied to him. One evening, while I gathered herbs by the riverbank, a familiar pressure filled the air. The birds fell silent. The wind changed direction. My breath caught that scent. Cedar, rain, iron, drifted toward me again. I turned, heart hammering, and there he was. Kieran stood at the edge of the water, half shadow and half light, his eyes catching the reflection of the dying sun. He didn't speak at first. He didn't need to. The bond spoke for him. A slow, invisible current that tugged at me until my knees threatened to give way. "You shouldn't be here," I said, though the words felt weak, almost pleading. He took one step closer, the air around him thick with power. "And yet, you felt me coming," he replied. I shook my head, retreating until cold water touched my ankles. "You're not welcome in this land." He tilted his head, a faint smile ghosting his lips. "I'm not here for your land. I'm here for what's mine." The world seemed to still. I hated how easily his voice slipped under my skin. When he reached out, I flinched, but the moment his fingers brushed my wrist, the heat flared again. Wild, uncontrollable, alive. My breath caught. The mark on my neck pulsed in answer to his touch, as though recognizing its maker. "Let go," I whispered. "I can't," he said simply. "And neither can you." He released me then, leaving my skin burning where his hand had been. He looked at me for a moment longer, an unreadable mixture of power and regret in his eyes, then turned and vanished back into the trees, swallowed by the dusk. The forest fell silent again, but I could still feel him. His warmth lingered in the air. His scent clung to my pulse. His voice echoed in my head like a curse. I sank to the riverbank, pressing a hand over my chest, trying to steady the storm inside me. I had promised myself I would never think of him again, never speak his name, never crave what I was never meant to have. But that night, as the moon rose high and painted the world silver, I finally understood the truth. No matter how hard I tried to forget him, my body would always remember. His touch wasn't just a memory, it was my curse. Sleep no longer brings me peace. When I close my eyes, I don't see stars or forests. I see him, the alpha I swore to hate until my last breath. Kieran. His face follows me into my dreams, into the quietest corners of my mind, as if the bond between us has turned sleep into another battlefield I can't escape from. Sometimes the dream begins in the forest, the same place where he marked me. The moon hangs low, bleeding light onto the trees, and he stands there, waiting. His voice comes first, deep and steady, the sound of someone who knows he'll be obeyed. "You can't run from me," he says, and when I turn to face him, the look in his eyes is not cruel. There's something worse, it's wanting. I wake up gasping, my sheets tangled, my heartbeat racing so fast it hurts. I tell myself it's just a nightmare, but my body trembles as though he's still there, whispering my name against my skin. Even in daylight, the memory doesn't fade. His scent sneaks into the air when I least expect it. During training, while fetching water, even when I'm surrounded by my pack. It's like the mark he left has opened a door inside me that I can't close. The healers say I'm imagining things. My friends tell me to pray. But no prayer can drown out the rhythm that echoes in my chest, that traitorous heartbeat that sounds too much like his name. Sometimes, I press my hand over my heart, hoping to quiet it, but the beat only grows stronger. Then one night, the dream changes. The forest burns around me, flames licking at the sky, and through the smoke, I see him. His clothes torn, blood streaked across his face, eyes desperate instead of cold. He reaches for me. "Please," he says, voice cracking, "don't go." I wake with tears on my cheeks, shaking, unsure whether the dream was his or mine. Because for the first time, it doesn't feel like he's haunting me. Feels like he's calling for me. The bond between us is deepening. Growing roots I can't rip out, no matter how much I want to. My heart, my thoughts, even my sleep belong to him now. And I fear that one day, when I close my eyes again, I won't wake up alone. Because he'll be there, waiting, not in a dream, but in reality. I left before dawn, slipping through the mist while the camp still slept. The forest was damp and silent, my breath fogging in the cold air. I told myself that this time I wouldn't look back, that if I could just cross the border and keep moving, the bond would fade, the dreams would stop, and the name echoing in my heart would finally go quiet. But the bond doesn't care about distance. It doesn't care about walls, rivers, or borders. It only knows the pull, a thread invisible to everyone but us. By midday, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered above me like a warning. I walked faster, clutching my cloak tighter, praying the rain would hide my scent. But deep down, I knew it was useless. He could find me anywhere. He always did. When the first drop of rain fell, so did my hope. His scent came with the storm, rain, cedar, and the faint metallic sweetness that was uniquely his. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. I could already feel him before I saw him. "Kieran," I whispered, though no one had spoken his name. He stepped out from behind the trees, his eyes catching what little light remained. The forest seemed to bow around him, every sound fading until there was only the rain and the steady rhythm of his footsteps. His clothes were damp, his hair clinging to his face, but his expression was the same, calm, unreadable, and terribly certain. "Why do you keep running from me?" His voice was low, carrying easily through the storm. "Because you won't stop following me." He stopped a few steps away, the space between us electric, humming with something I couldn't name. "You're mine," he said simply. "No distance changes that." I laughed, sharp, bitter, desperate. "You marked me without my will, destroyed my life, and now you claim me like I'm some trophy of war." His eyes softened for the briefest moment. "You think I wanted this?" he said quietly. "That night, I couldn't stop it. The bond chose for us both." "The bond?" I spat. "You mean your curse?" He didn't deny it. He only stepped closer. The rain beat harder, soaking through my clothes, but the heat between us only grew. I could feel it again, that awful, familiar pull. His presence pressed against me like gravity itself. The closer he came, the faster my heart raced until I couldn't tell if I wanted to flee or fall. He stopped just close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. "No matter where you go," he murmured, "the bond will lead you back. You can't break it. Neither can I." I shook my head, but my hands trembled. "You're lying." "Then why?" he whispered. "Do you tremble every time I'm near?" I had no answer. My body betrayed me again. Heartbeat wild, breath unsteady, his scent filling every corner of my lungs. I hated him for what he'd done, for the mark that chained me to him, but the worst part was the truth pulsing deep inside me. The truth that terrified me more than his power ever could. A part of me wanted to believe him, and that part was winning. The world felt impossibly still that morning, even though the storm outside had not yet relented. Rain hammered against the window, thrumming like the pulse in my chest. Fast, erratic, impossible to control. I sat on the edge of the small bed in the healer's cottage, hands shaking as I stared at the tiny stick in my palm. 2 lines. Clear. Unmistakable. I blinked. The room swayed. The air thickened. My chest tightened until it was hard to breathe. Couldn't be real. Shouldn't be real. I thought of that night under the blood moon, the heat of his touch, the way the world had narrowed until it was only him and me. I had pushed it from my mind, tried to bury it under anger and denial. It meant nothing, I had told myself. It was just a nightmare, a cruel twist of fate. But fate had never cared about what I wanted. I sank onto the bed, gripping the edges as if holding on could somehow keep me from falling into this terrifying truth. My hands shook, tears threatening to spill, and I pressed one hand against my stomach, the small, impossible secret stirring beneath my ribs. A life, his life, my enemy's life. The thought was unbearable. Every emotion collided inside me at once. Fear, anger, confusion, and, most painfully, a flicker of something I couldn't name. That part of me, the part that hated him, also recognized something warm and terrifying. He was already in me. Every memory of his scent, his voice, the heat of his body, rushed back like fire. And now it wasn't just memory. It was living. It was real. The forest was quiet, but I felt it before I saw him. That unmistakable presence, heavy and magnetic, drawing me in despite every instinct screaming to run. I froze mid-step, heart hammering against my ribs like a drum. As the wind shifted and carried the scent I both hated and craved. Cedar, rain, and something uniquely him that made my knees weaken even as I told myself to stay strong. Kieran stepped from the shadows, tall and impossibly composed, eyes locked on me with that golden intensity that always left me unbalanced. When he looks at me, it isn't just sight. It's ownership, understanding, and something far more dangerous. Desire. His gaze slides under my skin, tracing every nerve, every heartbeat, and it terrifies me. Because despite the fear, despite everything he has done, a part of me wants him near. I tried to focus on the trees, on the wind, on anything but his eyes, but it was impossible. They pull me in, bright and burning, and I find myself staring back, unwilling to look away. My body betrays me, trembling slightly, every muscle alive with a tension I cannot name. I hate that I notice the way the rain clings to his hair, the damp fabric that outlines the strength in his shoulders, the subtle heat that radiates from him even through the storm. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his voice low, rich, and dangerously calm. Even as I hissed at the sound, part of me wanted to lean into it. "I'm not alone," I snapped, stepping back. But the words sounded hollow even to me. He smirked faintly, and the air between us seemed to thicken. "Your body says otherwise." My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to put distance between us, but my legs refused. Every step I take away from him only seems to shorten the space between us. And then his hand is on my arm. Not a grip of force, but a gentle, deliberate touch that makes the blood in my veins heat and pulse in dangerous rhythm. "Why do you fight it?" he whispered, close enough that I could feel his breath ghosting across my skin. "Every time you try to escape, the bond drags you back to me. Your heartbeat, your scent, it betrays you." I swallowed hard, shaking my head. "It doesn't mean anything," I said. But even as the words left my lips, I knew they were lies. My body, traitorous, weak, remembered every flicker of heat, every pulse of his proximity, every flicker of that bond that tethered me to him in ways I couldn't break. He stepped closer, eyes never leaving mine. "It means everything," he murmured. "And yet you fight it. I admire that, even if I wish you wouldn't." The rain fell harder, soaking through our clothes, but I barely noticed. I was caught in the storm of his presence, in the pull of the bond, in the undeniable truth that he had marked more than my neck. He had marked my very soul. I wanted to hate him. I tried to hate him, but looking into his eyes, feeling his hand, sensing the heat of him pressing against my pulse, I realized that I was failing. My weakness wasn't fear, wasn't the pain he had caused me. My weakness was that, despite everything, a part of me craved him. And I knew, with a dread so deep it twisted in my stomach, that craving would only grow stronger. The forest blurred around me as I ran, mud sucking at my boots and rain soaking through every layer of my clothes. My chest heaved, my lungs burned, and every step forward felt like a battle against the impossible. I tried to escape the bond, to outrun the mark on my neck, to bury the memory of his touch deep inside me where it could do no more harm. But no matter how far I went, no matter how fast I moved, the pull of him never let me go. And then I felt it, that invisible weight, coiling around my chest, dragging me to a stop even before I saw him. Kieran. He emerged from the mist like a shadow of the storm itself, tall and unyielding, eyes glowing like molten gold through the downpour. My pulse quickened before my brain could react. My legs wanted to run, but my body betrayed me, trembling in the heat of his presence. He didn't need to speak. The bond spoke for him, a pull that wrapped around me, tightening with every step he took toward me. "I told you," he said softly, voice cutting through the rain like silk over steel. "You can't escape me." I choked, shaking my head. "I'm not yours." He stopped just inches from me, the air between us heavy with electricity, the scent of him flooding my senses. "You are," he said, not cruelly, but with certainty that made my blood run cold. "And this time, I won't let you run." I spun on my heel, desperate to find a path through the trees, through the rain, through the invisible chain that bound us. But every turn I took, every desperate attempt to put distance between us, failed. The bond pulled, tugged, demanded, and whispered my name in a way that made my knees weak. He was everywhere, a shadow at the edge of my vision, a presence I couldn't outrun. "You don't understand," I said, voice breaking. "I hate you." I know," he interrupted, stepping closer, the rain plastering his hair to his forehead, his eyes dark and consuming. "And yet your body doesn't. Your heart doesn't. Even your soul is betraying you, Omega. You can fight all you want, but it won't change the truth." My chest heaved as tears stung my eyes. How could he always see through me? How could he always know exactly how to make me tremble without touching me? My pride, my anger, my fear, all meaningless before him. His hand brushed my jaw, and despite every warning, every instinct, my body leaned toward the touch. The heat that radiated from him, the pull of the bond, the memory of his lips, his scent, the ghost of his teeth on my neck. All of it surged back in a wave that knocked me to my knees. "You see," he whispered, voice soft and dangerous, "you belong to me, and running only makes it worse." Couldn't argue, couldn't fight. Every muscle, every heartbeat, every breath screamed his name even as I wanted to curse him. My hands shook, my chest ached, and my soul whispered the one truth I refused to say aloud. He was inescapable. He knelt beside me, rain soaking us both, and his hand brushed my hair away from my face with a gentleness that made my heart both ache and betray me. "You can't fight it," he murmured. "You'll never be free, and deep down you don't want to be." I gasped, shaking my head, but the truth hit me harder than any blow. The bond, the mark, the memories, everything he had done, everything he had caused me to feel. It was stronger than my fear, stronger than my hate, stronger than me. And for the first time, I realized I didn't just want to survive. I wanted him to stay, even as I whispered a silent curse against the storm, against him, against my own heart. I knew the chase was over. He had found me, and this time he wasn't letting go. "You feel it too," he whispered, voice low, rasping with desire and something I couldn't name. I nodded, barely able to breathe, unable to speak the words that burned in my chest. Hate and longing, anger and need. They collided, fused into something raw and overwhelming. The rain wasn't just water falling from the sky. It was fire washing over us, cleansing us, binding us, revealing the truth neither of us could deny. For the first time, I realized the cruelest, most intoxicating truth. Our hatred was nothing compared to what was rising in its place. Something softer, something deeper, something that burned just as hot, desire. And in that storm, with the rain pouring down in sheets and his eyes locked on mine, I didn't want to escape. I wanted him. The rain came suddenly, a relentless downpour that turned the forest path into a river of mud. My boots sank into the wet earth, my cloak plastered to my back, and every step forward felt heavier than the last. I thought running could clear my mind, could free me from the bond, from him, from the ache that lived in my chest. But I was wrong. I wasn't alone. The moment I sensed his presence, my body froze. Kieran, the alpha I had sworn to hate, the one I had fought with every fiber of my being, was there, standing in the rain like a phantom, drenched and untouchable, and yet impossible to ignore. His hair clung to his forehead, his coat soaked, and every drop of rain seemed to glisten off him, making him look both dangerous and impossibly beautiful. You think you can run from me? His voice was calm, quiet, but it carried through the storm like a warning. Every word wrapped around me, tangled with the storm, and I felt my pulse betray me. Racing, uneven, betraying my defiance. I'm not yours, I shouted, though the words felt weak, drowned out by the pounding rain. He took a step forward, then another. The space between us closed with terrifying inevitability. My stomach knotted, my limbs froze, and yet every instinct screamed to stay, to feel, to surrender just a little. You are, he murmured, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, the pull of the bond, the mark pulsing beneath my neck in response to his presence. And every time you try to escape, it proves it. I swallowed hard, shaking my head. I hate you, I whispered, voice trembling. And yet you run toward me, he said softly. His hand brushed against mine. Barely a touch, but enough to ignite a fire I couldn't control. The bond hummed between us, a low, electric pull that made my knees weak. The rain fell harder, drumming against the trees and our bodies alike, but the storm outside didn't compare to the one inside me. His gaze burned into mine, softening, darkening, alive with something that terrified me. Desire, longing, a heat that matched the ache I tried to bury with every ounce of my pride. You don't get to control me? I breathed, though my voice betrayed me as much as my body did. He leaned closer, forehead brushing mine, rain running down our faces in silver rivulets. I don't want to control you, he whispered, his lips dangerously close to mine. I just want you. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, the world fell away. The storm outside became nothing, the mud and rain and cold irrelevant. There was only him, only the heat of his body, only the pulse of the bond that tied me to him against my will and yet, against my heart, maybe also by desire. The anger inside me began to melt into something softer, a warmth that coiled in my chest, heavy and sweet and terrifying. The hatred I had carried for him didn't vanish, but it was eclipsed by something just as consuming. The rain blurred our faces, but I could see every flicker of emotion in his eyes. Longing, frustration, need, and an unspoken question. Will you let me in? My breath hitched as his hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing away a rivulet of rain, or maybe a tear. I couldn't tell. I wanted to push him away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. And yet, my body leaned into his touch, drawn as if by the bond itself. The days inside his walls were endless, each one blurred into the next. The same firelight flickering across the room, the same rain drumming against the windows, the same quiet hum of the bond pulsing through my chest. I told myself I was safe. I told myself I was cared for, but the truth was sharper, colder, and far more suffocating than any threat outside could ever be. Kieran called it protection. I called it a cage. Every step I took in that space, every breath I drew, reminded me that I was no longer free. He was always near, in the corners of the room, in the quiet click of the door, in the subtle scent that clung to the air like a warning. Even when he wasn't physically present, I could feel him. The pull of the bond, the warmth that radiated from his mark on my neck, the unspoken claim that wrapped around me tighter than any chain. You don't need to worry, he said one evening, standing in the doorway as the firelight softened his features. I'm here. No one will hurt you. I don't need your protection. I snapped, my voice sharp despite the tremor in my chest. His expression didn't harden. Instead, he stepped closer, rain-damp hair plastered to his forehead, eyes glowing like molten gold. I do this because I have to, he said quietly. Because if I don't, someone else will. Someone crueler than me. I pressed my hand to my stomach, remembering the life growing there. The secret he didn't yet know he had shaped as much as I had. Then let me face them, I said. Let me survive on my own. You can't guard me from everything, and you shouldn't try. I can't risk it, he said, his voice low, steady, impossible to argue against. You're mine, and I won't let the world take you from me. Mine. The word twisted inside me, bitter and strange. His love, his obsession, his protection. All of it wrapped around me like iron bands disguised as velvet ropes. Safe, yes. Protected, yes. But also trapped. I could feel the weight of it in my chest, every heartbeat echoing the impossible truth. He was keeping me alive, and in doing so, keeping me caged. Sometimes, late at night, I would wake to find him near the door, watching, silent. Not threatening, but impossibly present. The bond hummed beneath my skin, alive and insistent, reminding me that I could not leave, that I did not want to leave, no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise. He swore he was protecting me, and in a way I believed him. But the walls around me were forged from his love, and love, when wielded like a weapon, was more binding than any chain. I hated him for it, and yet, every time his eyes softened, every time his hand brushed mine, every time the firelight caught the curve of his jaw, I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay, even if staying meant losing myself. Even if staying meant the cage would never open again. The night was heavy with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that vibrates in your bones, charged, dangerous, waiting to break. The fire had burned low, casting only faint embers that painted the room in gold and shadow. I could hear the rain outside, the same rhythm that once comforted me now sounding like the heartbeat of something I could no longer control. I sat by the window, wrapped in one of his shirts. Not by choice, but because it was the only thing that carried warmth. His scent clung to the fabric. Sharp pine, smoke, and something darker that always made my pulse quicken before I could stop it. Every inhale was a mistake, and yet I couldn't stop breathing him in. I hated him, or at least I thought I did. But hate shouldn't make your chest tighten when he enters the room. It shouldn't make your body react before your mind does. The door creaked open behind me, and I didn't have to turn to know it was him. Kieran's presence filled the air, steady, dominating, magnetic. The temperature seemed to shift, the very air bending around him like it recognized its alpha. "You haven't eaten," he said softly, his voice low and rough, like gravel laced with velvet. "I wasn't hungry," I replied, though the lie trembled in my throat. He stepped closer. "You never are. But your body tells a different story." The words made something flicker inside me. A spark I didn't want. A shiver that wasn't entirely fear. I turned toward him, glare sharp, hoping my anger could shield me from the truth pulsing beneath my skin. "Don't pretend to care. I don't pretend." His tone softened, and he took another step, closing the space between us until the air itself felt alive. "You think I don't see it? The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." My breath caught. "You're imagining things." He smiled faintly, a dangerous, knowing smile. "Then why are you shaking?" Because he was too close. Because his scent clouded my mind. Because every part of me that should have screamed to run was whispering stay. "I hate you," I said, but it came out weaker than I wanted. A whisper instead of a weapon. "I know," he murmured, his voice brushing against my ear like the edge of a confession. "But tell me, when you dream, do you hate me then too?" His hand came up, slow, deliberate, his fingers tracing the side of my neck where his mark glowed faintly beneath my skin. The touch sent heat spiraling through me, unwanted, undeniable. My pulse thundered, my knees felt unsteady. The bond reacted before my mind could. The air between us thickened until it was almost unbearable. His eyes burned with something wild, not just possession, but hunger. A hunger I could feel in my own veins, answering, echoing, betraying me. "Don't do this," I whispered, though my body leaned closer instead of away. "Then stop me," he said, voice low, challenging. Couldn't, because the line between hate and desire had vanished, blurred into something terrifyingly beautiful. One moment, I was pushing him away. The next, my hands were gripping his shirt, fingers trembling against the heat of his skin. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only his breath against my lips, the low growl in his chest, the fire that roared to life between us. This wasn't love. It was something far older, rawer, a primal pull that no amount of hate could destroy. The bond between Alpha and Omega wasn't gentle. It was a storm, and I was standing in its eye, caught between surrender and defiance. He pressed his forehead against mine, breathing hard. "Tell me to stop," he said. I opened my mouth to speak, to say no, to push him away, to end this before it swallowed me whole. But what came out instead was a whisper that sealed my fate. "I can't." The fire crackled. The rain grew louder, and the hunger that had been growing between us finally broke free, consuming us both in a night we would never forget. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. The storm had passed, leaving behind a pale wash of moonlight that spilled through the open balcony doors, silvering everything it touched. I stood there, barefoot, staring out into the endless dark, the cold wind brushing against my skin like a ghost of freedom I'd long forgotten. Behind me, I heard him. "Kieran." I didn't turn. I didn't have to. I could feel him. His presence was as familiar as my own shadow now, heavy with things unsaid. The sound of his footsteps was slow, deliberate, the quiet tread of someone carrying the weight of too many secrets. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. His voice was rough, but there was no command in it tonight. Just exhaustion, and something deeper, regret. I swallowed hard, keeping my eyes fixed on the moon. "You didn't let me dream for a long time," I said. "Maybe that's why sleep doesn't come easily anymore." He didn't answer right away. The silence between us stretched thin, trembling like glass ready to shatter. Then he came closer, stopping just behind me. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, the pull of the bond humming faintly under my skin. "I never meant to take your freedom," he said finally. "But I knew the moment I saw you that night, if I didn't claim you, someone else would. And they wouldn't have stopped at a mark." I turned slowly, meeting his gaze at last. The moonlight caught his eyes, gold bleeding into gray, and for the first time, I saw not the Alpha who caged me, but the man who feared losing me. "So you marked me out of fear?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Not love." He closed his eyes, jaw tightening. "At first, yes." The words hit harder than I expected. He looked up again, and something in his expression broke open, raw, unguarded. "That night," his voice cracked for the first time, "you were standing under the blood moon, looking at me like I was the enemy of your world, and I was, but I also saw something else. I saw someone strong enough to hate me, and I knew if I didn't tie you to me, I'd lose you forever." I took a step back, heart pounding. "So you took away my choice." "I gave you my life," he said quietly. "Even if I didn't know how to love you then." The moonlight trembled across his face, and I saw the truth in every word. He wasn't the same man from that night, the ruthless Alpha who took what he wanted without remorse. The fire in him had burned into something softer, something that almost looked like pain. "I tried to let you go," he whispered, "more than once. But every time I saw you walk away, every time you looked at me with hate, I felt it here." He pressed a hand against his chest, where the bond pulsed faintly beneath the skin. And I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened. I wanted to hate him, to cling to the anger that had kept me alive all these months. But under the silver light, the lines between us blurred. Hate, love, fear, longing, all tangled into one unbearable truth. "I marked you," he continued, "not to own you, but because I didn't know another way to keep you safe. You were my weakness long before that night, and I was too proud to admit it." I stared at him, at the man who had torn my world apart, and the same man who now stood before me, stripped of his armor. His voice trembled when he said my name, and for the first time, I heard what had been hiding in it all along. Love. Real, fragile, and terrifying. The wind stirred between us, carrying the scent of rain and pine, and something else, truth. Slowly, I stepped closer until the space between us was only a breath. "You could have told me," I said, voice breaking. "You could have trusted me instead of trapping me." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I know. And if I could go back, I would have chosen differently." The bond pulsed once. Slow, steady, alive, And for the first time, it didn't feel like a chain. It felt like something else. Something shared. Under the moon's silver glow, he whispered the words I had waited to hear but never thought would come. I marked you that night, because I loved you even when I thought I hated you. The words hung in the air, soft as the moonlight, heavy as fate. And for the first time, I couldn't tell which of us was more broken, the Alpha who confessed too late or the Omega who still wanted to believe him. The world outside our walls was chaos. Packs clashed in the streets, claws and teeth tearing at each other, blood staining the soil in a brutal testament to centuries-old grudges. Our names had become weapons, our faces symbols of defiance. And yet, in the midst of this war, there was only one truth that mattered. One battle that neither Claw nor Fong could touch. The one raging between Kieran and me. He stood beside me on the balcony, shoulders squared, jaw tight, eyes burning gold in the fading sunset. The storm of the packs below seemed distant, insignificant, compared to the storm between us. His hand brushed mine, a silent reminder that, despite everything, we were not alone. They'll never accept this, I whispered, voice trembling. They'll never understand what we are, what we feel. They don't need to, he said, his gaze unwavering. We do. That's enough. I looked at him, the Alpha I had once hated, the one I had wanted to escape, the man who had marked me, claimed me, consumed me. And yet, here he was, fighting not just for me, but for us. Every line of tension in his body, every golden flicker in his eyes, spoke of devotion and danger intertwined. The first attack came without warning. Shadows lunged from the alley below, rogue Omegas and Alphas testing the boundaries of our packs, challenging the claim that bound us. Kieran reacted instantly, moving like liquid steel, every motion precise, lethal. I watched him, breath caught in my throat, heart hammering with fear and something darker, awe. You'll be safe, he said, his hand gripping my wrist as he pulled me back into the shadows of the balcony. No one touches you. But safety was a lie. Every roar, every clash, every scream below reminded me that the world did not care about our bond. That love was fragile, a flickering flame in a hurricane of hatred. And yet, as I looked up at him, standing there like a golden sentinel in the dying light, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. I stepped closer to him, hand finding his chest. The bond hummed beneath my fingers, pulsing with life and fury, binding us tighter than any pack could. Then we fight, I whispered. He turned his gaze toward me, the corners of his mouth softening in a faint, fierce smile. Together, he said. The night exploded in chaos, but for the first time I felt invincible. With him beside me, every threat became smaller, every enemy less frightening. The packs might try to tear us apart, history might scream for blood, and the world might demand obedience. But love, our love, was something neither of us would surrender. We moved as one through the shadows, bodies brushing, heartbeats synchronized, the bond roaring with power. Every attack he deflected, every challenge he met, reminded me that he wasn't just my Alpha. He was my protector, my anchor, my storm. And in return, I found a courage I had never known before. The world wanted to see us fall. The world wanted to see us broken. But we weren't theirs to claim. We were ours. And in the chaos of war, in the storm of claws and fangs and fury, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit before. The greatest battle wasn't outside. It was here, between us, where fear met desire, hate met longing, and two souls refused to let go of each other, no matter what the world demanded. Because love doesn't ask for permission. Love doesn't bow to enemies. Love survives. And we would survive. Together. The fire was low, casting long, trembling shadows across the room. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the distant echoes of chaos. The remnants of pack wars, the unfinished battles, the lives that had been touched by our defiance. But inside, there was a different storm. One that no one could see, no one could intervene in except us. Kieran sat across from me, shoulders tense, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the room, beyond me, as though staring at some invisible horizon. The bond pulsed faintly, a constant hum between us, but tonight it felt different, heavier, more insistent, alive with something I had never felt before. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly, voice trembling. "Why did you carry it all alone?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, his hands tightened into fists at his sides, knuckles white against the firelight. I could see the tension in him, the rigid posture he always carried as an alpha, the shield he built around his emotions. But tonight the shield faltered. I didn't want to lose you," he whispered finally, voice low, strained. "Not then. Not ever. Every time I thought of telling you, I was afraid you'd hate me, that you'd leave, that the pack, the world, that it would take you away from me." I watched him, heart pounding. There was a vulnerability in him I had never seen before. A crack in the armor, exposing the man beneath the alpha, the man who loved me so fiercely it hurt. "I'm not leaving," I said, voice breaking. "I never will. But you don't have to carry everything alone. You can let me in." His eyes finally met mine, and in the golden glow of the firelight, I saw it, tears. Not one, but two trailing down his cheek. The alpha who had once been untouchable, the man whose claim had terrified me, was breaking before me. And in that moment, my chest ached with a mix of love, fear, and longing. I've always felt responsible," he choked out, "for the pack, for you, for everything. And I can't protect you from the world if I can't even face my own failures." I rose from my seat, stepping closer until the distance between us vanished. His trembling hands lifted to mine, clinging as if afraid to let go, and I placed my palm against his cheek, warm, real, grounding. "You're not failing," I whispered. "You're human, Kieran. You don't have to be the perfect alpha. You just have to be here with me." His breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw him not as an alpha who commanded obedience, who took without asking, but as a man who loved with everything he had, strength and vulnerability intertwined, pride and tenderness colliding in a way that left me breathless. The tears fell freely now, and I caught each one with my thumb, letting him feel my presence, my acceptance, my unspoken promise. He buried his face in my shoulder, letting himself be small, letting me see all the pieces of him he had hidden for so long. "I love you," he whispered against my chest. "More than my pride, more than the world, more than I ever thought I could love." I wrapped my arms around him, holding him tight, feeling the weight of his pain, his longing, his love, and I realized the truth I had always known but never admitted aloud. The alpha who had haunted my nights, who had broken me and rebuilt me, who had marked me as his own, was human, fragile, and wholly irrevocably mine. And in that moment the world could burn outside. Inside there was only us. The alpha's tears were no longer a sign of weakness. They were proof that love could conquer pride, that vulnerability could coexist with power, that even the strongest could fall and still hold someone in their arms with unwavering devotion. And I knew with every heartbeat that I would never let him go. The world outside was silent, as if even the wind dared not disturb the moment. Dawn broke slowly, spilling silver light through the cracks of the wooden walls, touching everything with a quiet, sacred glow. I was trembling, not from pain, but from the weight of what lay in my arms. Our child. The proof of everything I tried to deny. His tiny heartbeat echoed the same rhythm that once bound me to his father under the blood moon. I never imagined this day, never believed that something born from violence, from a curse I swore to hate, could feel so impossibly pure. He entered the room then, the alpha who once ruined me, now standing hesitant at the door like a sinner before his salvation. His eyes were no longer cruel, no longer burning with dominance or fury. They were soft, wet, human. When his gaze fell on the child, the mask shattered. He dropped to his knees, the same man who had commanded armies, broken rivals, and silenced me with a single look, now trembling like he'd just witnessed a miracle. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered, voice breaking, "but I couldn't lose you, even if it meant becoming the monster you'd hate forever." And in that moment, I finally understood. Love wasn't what we were taught it should be. Ours was dangerous, defiant, born from fire and blood. But here, in the soft light of morning, it felt like redemption. Under the silver dawn, I held our child, the forbidden bond that defied the rules of pacts, power, and pride. What began as a curse had become something sacred, something eternal, something that would change everything.